hear me okay in the back? We are doing Genesis, I do believe it's chapter 37. Genesis chapter 37. Those of you that were in Sunday school this morning got the benefit of skipping ahead a couple of chapters as I did. Talked about Joseph and how he was sold into slavery. But the message this morning was that God will never leave you nor forsake you, ever. And He can take a bad situation and He can bring good out of it. Because Romans 8:28 says, "For we know that all things work for good to them that love the Lord." So, no matter what's going on in your life today, if you're sitting in that pew and you love the Lord, do you love the Lord?
Amen.
Okay, if you love the Lord, then you've got to know and have faith that He is going to turn it around for you. Last several weeks I've also preached on obedience, and people don't understand that, there's a lot of buts and ifs and ands when God makes these promises, because there's always a condition. Well, what is the condition? Well, first of all, you've got to love the Lord.
Amen.
And I just don't think that condition is too hard to follow. But the other thing is we have to walk in obedience. If you want your prayers answered, then you have to be walking in obedience, so God will bless your life. That does not mean that you're not going to fall short and you're going to do things wrong and you're going to sin. That's just a part of life. It's the way it is. Ain't none of us perfect, and we all mess up.
Amen.
And I know for myself, I've stood before this church many times and said, hey, I'm probably the biggest sinner in here. But God has called me to this because I love Him and because I love teaching His Word, and He has blessed me with that. Last week I did a sermon on the spirit of jealousy. There are so many evil spirits in the world, and I know for a fact since I started this ministry, I'll have people come up to me and ask me to pray for them, and they'd say, you know what, I ain't never heard of that. Ain't nobody ever taught me that there were evil spirits, demons, devils, and there are. You have to know that to know who your enemy is and to recognize it. The spirit of jealousy is so powerful, and it's just not just the word jealousy, because there's a whole umbrella of things that come under the spirit of jealousy. Murder, jealous, revenge, spite, anger, rage, strife, hatred, cruelty, extreme competition, contention, cause division, envy, and sowing discord. Look at all the different tools that umbrella under that one word, jealousy. How many people do you think sitting in prison in the United States today because they were jealous and killed somebody? And they let it get the best of them, man. You get wrapped up in that, and you will do anything that you don't even think is imaginable for you to do. You've got to understand that there are evil spirits. So God has given us, He has given us the authority over them. If you recognize it, you can cast them back to the abyss. Amen. From whence they came. Amen. We have to be made aware, and I'm going to do this story on Joseph. This is another story on Joseph like I did this morning, except for now you're going to see how he ended up in the situation that he did. And as we go through that, you're going to see almost every one of these that I just said to you is going to take place in this story. So we're going with chapter 37, starting with verse 1. Also, before I do these stories, I like to kind of remind you, every time we read an Old Testament Bible story, you've got to think these are people. This actually happened. And you need to imagine this situation happening today in some way or not. But it really happened. And these are really people that have feelings, that have made mistakes, that are killed, and so forth. So keep that in mind when you're doing these. And for 1 Corinthians 10:11 says, "Now these things happened unto them for examples, for those for admonition upon the ends of the world are come." So in other words, they're written for me and you, right, as examples of things that take place today that would help us in different situations. All right, so verse 37, and Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. Now, Canaan was a very dangerous place. It had Perizzites, it had Medianites, it had also had, for some of you that study a lot deeper and know, there were actually an influx of fallen angels in this land. It was a very, very bad place to be, ungodly people. All right, verse 2. These are the generations of Jacob, Joseph being 17 years old. As you learned earlier if you were in Sunday school. I mean, he's just a 17-year-old kid. But how many times have you seen God use a child in this Bible to do great things? I mean, he used David. Look what he did. He defeated Goliath when the whole tribe of Israel stood back shaking in their boots. This kid run to battle and killed him. All right, wherewith father was strength. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, that's one of the handmaids of Rachel, and with the sons of Zilpah, another handmaid, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now, I keep telling you to relate this today. What a dysfunctional family. I mean, could you absolutely imagine that there are 4 wives in the house, and then you've got the 11 boys, and you've got the 1 girl, then you've got their children and grandchildren, and so forth and so on. I mean, we think our lives are crazy and our household crazy and the things that go on. I've got 1 wife in this area. I don't need 3 or 4. I don't know about y'all. But anyway, so here you have this dysfunctional family, this huge family. It's going to be a lot of jealousy, a lot of chaos, and a lot of strife. And it says in the end of that verse, it said, and the lad was with the sons, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. He was a tattletale. I mean, any of you that have grown up with siblings or whatever, you know what I'm talking about, that you do something wrong, your younger brother or sister run and tell mommy and daddy, and you get your tail end tore up. But anyway, so basically he was a tattletale on the rest of them. His father would send him out, and he'd go tattletale. Now Jacob favored Joseph the most of all the kids. Now I know parents don't do that on purpose, but it happens, you know, because he loved Rachel and she had Joseph and Benjamin, so Joseph was Jacob's favorite son. That's not going to go over well when you've got 12 other siblings. It's going to cause jealousy and it's going to cause strife. When I was reading this story, it kind of reminded me of my brother, talking about him being a tattletale. I got my tail end busted many a time by Poppy, which is my dad. People don't know who he is. And my brother had little old chubby cheeks, so every time he'd do something wrong, I'd grab his little cheeks, and say, yeah, like that right there. Because I knew if I beat him up, I was going to get in trouble, and I was going to take a whooping. Well, so he'd always run to my dad, and his cheeks would be all red, and my dad bust my tail. All right, so one day I thought, man, I am not peaching his cheeks. So he run off, and I went and followed him one day, and he was on the other side of the trailer going like this, pinching his jaws. And he went to run to my daddy so I could get my tail busted. All right, so anyway, that story comes to mind. That's a long, long time ago. But anyway, so Joseph is a big old tattletale with the rest of his brethren, and his father has put him up on a pedestal, in favor of him, man. I mean, that's hurtful to the other children, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. All right, verse 3. Now Israel loved Joseph. Now Israel is Jacob. Loved Joseph more than all of his children. And like I said, I don't believe any parent in the world would ever set out to do that on purpose, but sometimes it happens. Because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. So here you have this 17-year-old kid now. Now he's got older brothers and a sister. He's 17. The coat of colors means he is going to be the heir to inherit all that is his father's. Now he's sitting there, got this coat of colors on. He's already a tattletale within his brethren, and now his daddy's got him prancing around in this coat of colors and arrogance. So this is going to cause, now if you want to look at the ones this causes under jealousy, it's going to cause division, it's going to cause envy, and it's going to cause anger. All right, verse 4. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably upon him. So what's it caused? Hate, contention, strife. Now, do you think this takes place in other places other than our home? With, not just your siblings. What about the workplace? How many people do you think have been killed to get the spirit of jealousy because somebody else was promoted for a job they thought they were better qualified for? It takes place in even churches today, which is really, really sad thing to say, that there is strife and contention and hatred in a church. And I say that because, well, if you're in a church that's teaching God's Word, you won't have that, because we're going to try to walk in obedience with Him. But this takes place in the workplace, it takes place in churches, it takes place in your homes. The spirit of jealousy is a very powerful tool that Satan will use to get you to fall. Verse 5, and Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. Now the dream was no doubt from God, but he needs to use a little common sense. I mean, he is 17 years old. Okay? You think he'd have a little bit more common sense about him. Verse 7, For behold, we are binding sheaves, he's telling them the dream. We are binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaf stood round about, and made obedience to my sheaf. He's telling them that he's going to rule over them. He's 17, his daddy favors him, he's a tattletale, and he's prancing around out there in that little pretty coat of his, and now he's saying, hey, I got a dream, and you're going to bow down to me one day. Now, as you can imagine, that's going to go over real well. So there you have the spirit of anger. And Hebrews 12:8 says, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. So always keep that in mind. Verse 8. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us? Or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and his words. Again, jealousy has pushed many people over and past their limits all the way to murdering somebody. Verse 9. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it to his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obedience to me. The moon and the sun represent his parents. The stars represent his 11 brothers. So now he's not only saying, are you going to bow down to me? Mom and Daddy's going to bow down to me too. Now I know we're talking about the spirit of jealousy here, but now he is using a lot of pride and a lot of arrogance, which was the downfall of Satan himself. So he's not going about this right anyway. Alright, verse 10. And he told it to his father and to his brethren, and his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brother indeed come to bow down ourselves to the earth? Pride and arrogance. You think that he would realize what he's doing is getting him in trouble and causing problems with his brethren. We do not always understand God's plan, but his is always the wisest for us. And what I'm saying is here, because Joseph's going to end up being a great man in the land of Egypt before this is over with. He always brings something good out of the negative. Verse 11. And his brethren envied, here we go, there's one of your terms under the umbrella. His brethren envied him, but his father observed the same. Jacob knew that it was from God that he was having the visions. Alright, verse 12. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem, and Israel, which is Jacob, said unto Joseph, Do not thy brother feed the flock in Shechem? Come, and I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here I am. So basically, here he goes again. His daddy's sending him out there to check on his brothers, his 11 brothers, so that he can tattletale on them. Verse 14. And he said to Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with thy flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. 15. And a certain rich man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? 16, and he said, I seek my brethren, tell me, I pray thee, where thou feed the flock. Now he's on another man's property. This guy don't know who he is, but he's prancing around in his coat of colors with his pride and his arrogance, thinking he should know who he is. Okay? 17, and the man said, They are departed hence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. Dothan means two wells. 18, and when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. There you have revenge and murder that is prompted by jealousy and favoritism. 19, and they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh, which means master dreamer. 20, Come now therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. Now jealousy can bring brother against brother, sister against sister, father, mother. I mean, this jealousy destroys relationships and marriages and families.
Amen.
So it is so important to understand that what you are combating in this life. And Reuben, which is the oldest son of Leah, heard it, and he delivered him out of his hand and said, Let us not kill him. Again, Reuben was the oldest son. 22. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands to deliver him to his father. He knows how much Jacob loved him, and he did not want to see him killed, and he's trying to get him back home. 23. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come into his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Now could you imagine your own brothers stripping you down and beating you and throwing you into a pit with the intention of murdering you over jealousy? It is a very powerful tool that Satan uses on us to destroy families, to destroy churches.
Amen.
25. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, and their camels bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, and going to carry it down to Egypt. All right, this would be the offspring of Hagar. 26. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother? It's going to profit them nothing. Okay, 27. Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. I believe that Judah was trying to protect him as well, and didn't want his own brother's blood on his hands. What happened between Cain and Abel? Cain killed Abel because he was jealous. He killed him because God found favor with Abel and not him, or not his offering. 28. Then there passed by the Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew up and lifted Joseph out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. They brought Joseph in to Egypt. You know that Satan uses sometimes, he uses people that are closest to us.
Yes.
You think they got your back. You think that they love you. But I'm telling you right now, if they get the spirit of jealousy on them, and they get that anger, and they get that the contentment for one another, it causes people to do things that they normally would not do. There are people that outside of this church, it's kind of funny that I'm teaching on jealousy, who would love nothing better to see this church fail.
Amen.
Out of pure jealousy.
Amen.
And nothing else. Don't get me started on that.
Amen.
And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. He knew that it was going to kill his daddy, because this was one of his second youngest born under Rachel, and it was his favorite. 30. And he returned unto his brethren and said, The child is not, and whither shall I go? He says, What can I do? And they took Joseph's coat, and they killed a kid of the goat, and the coat in blood. I mean, we're trying to make it look like an animal killed him. Look at the deceit, the plotting, the planning, and the lying. Verse 32. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat. They knew whose coat it was. And Jacob surely knew whose coat it was. 33. And he knew it and said, It was my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent into pieces. Verse 34. And Jacob rent his clothes and put sackcloth upon his loins and mourned for his son for many days. And all the sons and his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And he said, For will I go down into the grave unto my son mourning thus? His father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard. So you see what jealousy can do in our lives today when we let it consume us. But I also want to tell you that if you are walking in obedience to God, if you read the story from the next chapter, you skip that chapter and go to the next one we did in Sunday school, his brothers and his father do end up bowing down before him because God put him in that situation so that he could deliver his children and that they would not starve to death in the land. So understand, his situation looked so dire and so bad, they almost murdered him. And guess what? God is still with him. God still had his hand on him. And before it's over with, he is running the kingdom of Egypt. Because Joseph remained in favor with God. Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Everyone please.